down the bottom. 65 and 65. It's pretty easy when you've got a spreadsheet. Just for a bit of special effect. So there's where I did the exercise of the option. And so now it's calculated the present values of all of those and how much has the value of the asset gone up by? 5.42 million. So far that is the value of the option, 5.42. So the value of the project without the option or present value is 100. The value with the option is 105.42. So if you said to me, you can pick contract A or B, one you're locked into and one you can abandon, already I'm going to be paying around 5.42 million more for it. I haven't finished the exercise yet, but so far, everybody see that? Okay. Everybody all right?
Your results are slightly different than what's printed in the
I haven't finished yet.
Oh.
Really, just taking each step at a time. And why do my results differ?
because you can exercise.
I might exercise early, 5:30 in the morning instead of 9 o'clock at night. So let's go back a year now. It's really important that you don't miss this. Always check. It's just a good habit. Wash your hands and always check whether you'd exercise your options. That's what you should be taught at school. Would I exercise my option? No, I wouldn't sell, I wouldn't sell, I wouldn't sell. But have a look here. 60, no, it's not much. But the present value of 70 and 65 is 64.42. So I'm being rather technical, but I would actually exercise my option as early as year 4 if values drop there, in theory. And what about down here, 61.9? Well, I would also exercise my option there. So you see with this put option or abandonment option, I'm saying I may exercise my option early. If things are heading south, I'm not going to wait. The market signal is, if you wait, it's worth 61.9. If you abandon now, it's worth 65. I'll take the $3 or $4 million. Does everybody see that? Always check whether I should exercise my option early. So let's do that. And all I really need to do is just go over the top. So I go over the top there, 64.42 gets overridden by 65 and 65. Again, just a bit of colour to remind us that that's where we exercise the option. So I hope most people, it's getting a little mundane perhaps for others. I hope you're not too far away, but make sure you follow up with me with those homework problems if you're not getting them out. But we are really starting to value some complex things. It doesn't seem like it in a step-by-step process, but soon we'll have abandonment here, and expansion here, and defer. And we've got an optimal project management strategy. If this happens, we'll do this. If that happens, we'll do that. We've got a plan A, B, C, and D. That's good management. That's active management of a set of assets or an initiative, rather than I'll invest and leave it. That's it. Hope it works. Now, come to the next year. Would I exercise my option early? No, there's just one in there for us. So now I might be exercising my option as early as the end of year 3. So 65. And anywhere else. The present value of 78 and 65 is 67.9, and if I came down this pathway and got to 67.9, I'd say, gee, things haven't worked very well, but at this stage it's worth more than selling it. Now the reason I would stay is why? I know it cost me, what did it cost me? 95 million to get into, and it's already gone to 67.9. Why on earth would I be saying stay? Because we could head north again. That's the whole idea of the binomial tree. Things could turn around. But if it drops below 65, well, things could perhaps turn around. That becomes a point where we say it's in our best interest to exercise our option. So, how much did the value of the project or the asset rise as a result of the flexibility? It's right there in front of us. It went up by 6.1 million. So the value of the option to abandon is 6.1 million. In this case, not an issue, because there's no deferrals or no future investments. So 6.1. And below the line, I can show you how we'd actually do that. We just looked at the zeros and the pluses that some people are more accustomed to. So I'll show you that now. Did I put that on your page? I did. So all I did here is just subtract this number from the top number, this number from the top number, and obviously the 65s from the numbers that are smaller lead to positives. And they're the values or the extra gains that I make if I exercise my options. So just take a look, pick any one of these. What about this one, 30? So it should be the difference between 95 up the top and 65 here leaves me the 30. And when I discount these numbers back, no surprise, I get the $6.10. So that's really just valuing the option directly, as opposed to the top one, which is the asset with the option on top of it or in place. I don't mind which you do. Probably this is more meaningful to a senior executive team. This would have been a thing. So no, there's the project, and if this happens, we'll do nothing. If that happens, we'll go for plan B, restructure. We'll remove half the workforce. We'll sell the facility in South Australia because of the strong foreign competition, and that'll cut down our overheads. You know, it's exercising the options that exist to us and what they'd be worth.
When you're just saying that we don't want to use the difference between MPVs to actually value the option, before we had like a negative.
In this case, it's okay because we already have an asset in place. So the other one, sorry if it sounds confusing, but previously there was a cash flow being made at a future date. And so we're kind of mixing two different things. Here it's really transparent. The asset's worth 100 without the option. What's the asset worth with the option? 106.1. And I can really see the value added by the option here because I didn't have an outlay happening somewhere else. You'll see as we start to do more and more practice of these. And I'll make sure I come back and cover that with some simple exercises. Alright, so that's an abandonment option. And my report would say the value created by the option is 6.1 million. That's how much the asset's gone up by. That's how much the asset's gone up by, not the MPV, was what we were just asking about, but the asset. And we may exercise this option as early as year 3. And I'd expect someone to say, how on earth could that happen? Well, our volatility factor's 35%. Oh, how did you use that? Well, I used 3 main data sources. What we've seen historically in the market, I run a simulation and something else, and the numbers come in there. And they still might say, no, gut feel says no, but that's all right. That's what the boss can do. But we've given some structure around the strategic option. You know, we've got something to discuss, some numbers to look at, some assumptions to challenge.
In this example, would it be fair to say we'd either exercise in year 3 or year 4, but we would never...
Oh, good point.
We'd never make it to year 5?
Yeah, well, that's right. We may exercise as early as year 3. You see, if I exercise there, then all of this now just disappears because I've already sold the asset. So I sell the asset there, I'm not going to get anything from the right-hand side on. So that's why we're moving from right to left.
But you could sell it in year 4, is that right? If
Yeah,
you went
I could sell
from
it in year 4.
78 down?
Yeah, but I'm... Oh, yes, okay. If I end up here and go down there, I certainly may sell. Everybody pick that up? It's on the tree, so I could be at 78 and then there's a long winter or global war or something and it comes down to 65 or whatever the number was. So, but this does preclude those two if I'm on this pathway. So I really, do you notice all I'm doing is putting the biggest number on all the time? That's the bit about the option. It creates the best thing that we need to do. And the other way to think about it, as I said earlier, is imagine you started here and you went on a walk and the walk could take you anywhere. What am I likely to do at each signpost? It's almost as there's the fork in the road. Do I go right or do I go left? Well, if I go here, there's Cliff, I'll abandon. If I go here, there's Jules. I'll keep going. You see, all an option assumes, or a real option, is that management manage. They're active. They're bold. They're visionaries. They have no fear. They're willing to say, it's not working, I'm going to do something. As opposed to, I'm going on sabbatical for a while and leaving somebody else. Point a new director. That's all we're saying. We're really modelling what we think active managers would do. And then in putting together a project, we want to create as many strategic options as we can. Have plan B, C, D and E. But understand the trigger points for them. If the exchange rates go to this, I really need to contemplate that. If my market share falls to this, I need to contemplate this. Now I've got a plan, a roadmap. All right, well, remember the earlier question I added, although it's worth 6.1 million, there are no free options, or there shouldn't be free options. So the buyer of the technology said they'd charge us 5 million. I made that number up, it's not a question, but I guess we would say in light of that, well, the option's worth 6.1, they want to charge us 5. I guess technically the answer is yes. In the boardroom, Sir Reginald or Sir Malcolm Irving might say, well, I don't think it's enough returns on. You say, well, okay, I understand. Humans don't necessarily follow what MPV says. You know, hence that other thing that I put up here where you try to put so much information in front of them they can't help it. Another thing I've learned is if you put in a really big bid for something, they'll probably try to work out ways to do it. If you put in a lower bid, they'll say, can we get you down a bit? Just something I've learned. So always bid 500,000 and I'll try to work out a way to do it. Give them 200,000 and say, well, why don't you get down to 180? So I'm psychology now, I'm getting like Robert's following. Just experiencing the cognitive biases, the way people respond to information. It's game theory as well as behavioural finance. Anyway, so we still should go for it, even if I had to pay the $5 million up front according to the numbers, even though a board might start to argue it's not enough. By arguing it's not enough, then they're not counting the fact they're earning more than the required rate of return. Nobody likes to hand over $5 million non-refundable payment, even if it is an insurance policy. Any other questions or comments? There are a couple of other questions in the question. What's the value of the project with a strategic option in place? Well, it's 106.1, but remember, we did have to invest 95 to go ahead, so it already was a positive NPV, and now it's even more positive NPV, so 11.1. So see this little table here? I'd have the value of the option is 6.1. And the base case has a present value of, what would the table look like? Something like this. So let's just call it the competitive project, and its present value is 100. The strategic option is worth 6.1. The present value of the project, or the value, is 106.1. But of course, we needed to invest 95 to get there. That's the way I might present that. So the competitive bit is just me saying it's the base case, and that's where I'm taking on the competition.
In terms of the 11.1 figure that you got there, does the 5 million you paid for the...
Oh, good point. So the actual outlay is 95 plus 5. Thank you. That was just an afterthought, that 5. Everybody pick up that point? Yeah. So I'm also paying 5 for the... Can't we just amortise that over 10 years and hide it? Matching principal in accounting? Good point, good point. Still a valuable project. Yes, that's right. So we pay 95 to invest in the asset and 5 for the premium. So we're still ahead. So I didn't put that in here. It's really the other 5 as well. So 6.1 overall. So I'm paying 5 million to get 6.1 back on the option. Thanks for reminding me of that. Just a way to set out the case. I'm kind of the view these days, lay it all out. Sometimes, like I said, when you do, they say yes. If you give them one number, they get suspicious. Don't worry about the spotlight going on something. Let them challenge your assumptions. Once you've got an answer, and here's why I use these numbers. The skill of getting a business case over the line. With the strategic option in place, the head of the division in Biosystems wants to know the probability of the product surviving. See, this might be another criteria over here that might help ultimately decide whether we go ahead or not. Particularly if there are 3 or 4 products in the pipeline. This could be one of the criteria. This information will be useful in making decisions across the entire product portfolio. What's the probability of the product surviving? Oh, I like doing this. Has anybody heard of Pascal's triangle? I used to do it when I was in school in the early 90s, they did it, but I'm not sure about what they do now. That's all this is. I've showed it to you before. Remember I talked about how many ways to get to that destination? There's only one. So let's quickly run through it just so you've got it, because it could be useful. 1, 2, 1. I can see people there. I'm going to try and get to that 3 now. Last one, 1, 5, 10, 10, 5, 1. For some reason I remember that from about year something. Last one. So this is sort of our normal distribution starting. So Brian, they still teach Pascal's triangle. I didn't realise. I put it to class. What are you talking about? Sounds like a lolly in New Zealand. Pascal's triangle. Okay, so there it is. So remember, how many ways can I get to this point? And there are 5. That's all that means. So if we're dropping marbles down through things, there'd be a certain probability of reaching that destination. That's the basis of the normal distribution. So the 5 ways are up here and turn right. 2, 3, 4, 5. I put that on my route. If I can't sleep at night, I just count the number of ways between periods. It's really good. You know those fluorescent stars, you put them up there and follow the pathways. Alright, so you might have said there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 outcomes there. So the probability of the product surviving is survive, 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 survive. So it's 4 out of 6. You know what? Probably doesn't matter too much, but that's technically not right. That's what, if you really want to get into probabilities. Everybody pick that up? Say 2 out of 6 chance it'll fail and I'll abandon. 4 out of 6 that I'll remain. But in fact, there are so many different ways to get to these locations. The real probability is very different. So that's all this is about. And I don't think this is any examinable material. It's just an interesting part of the questions and it's going to make you learn Pascal's triangle. Okay. So how many outcomes are there here? 32. So 32 possible trips that can be made in total. And then where do we do the abandonment? So we pull out there and we pull out there. So we've already lost 6. also pulled out here and here. So now the only way I can get to this location is not the 4 up, there's 4 ways to get to there and 6 ways to get to there, it's now just 6. That's essentially what happens. See, this 4 here says there were 4 ways that I got to that point. And this one says there were 6 ways that I got to that point. And 4 ways that I got to that point. But that 4's disappeared now. So it's down to 6. So that's just for interest perhaps more than anything else. But I still think it's useful add-on. And then we also cancel here, but that doesn't affect those 2 wiped out already. So actually, what's the real probability that the product will survive? It's 6, 22, 6 plus 10 plus 5 plus 1. So whatever that is, I think it's about 6.9% probability that the product will survive. We won't have to abandon. That number's right. Actually, it's not that far away from 2/3, but it could be materially different. So if you said around 2/3 to 70%, that's good, because somebody running this product portfolio might say that's really quite significant to me. A 30% chance we'll have to abandon. I'm not going to go for that on that basis. You can throw your NPVs around forever, but that's actually really material information for me. Particularly if I'm lining it up against other projects. Did you get that okay? Is it on Facebook or? Yes.
69% is the probability that
Of survival.
we will survive.
Yes. And that's why I said about 30% that will have to be. Well, it'll fail, but it still recovers some costs. That was the whole idea of management, building in the flexibility. Is that okay? So that's using that triangle, the probabilities that come from it. But don't try learning those off. But really all that is 1 plus 4 is 5. That's how it is. I use that type of approach to work out which way to get home tonight. George Street, Martin Place, down through Hyde Park. It's all about probability theory. Okay, so there's our first one. We can speed them up a bit now, but really then the fun bit, oh, what type of option is this? Everybody gets very excited. So any questions? That was an abandonment option. Can you see some of the things that I could probably do to make it even more realistic if I was building a case? Would be to say it wouldn't be 65 million per period, it would probably change per period. The abandonment value will probably deteriorate through time. Think about this prestigious asset now, and I can abandon at various points in time, but as we move through time, the value starts smaller and smaller. It's only a minor change, but starts to add richness to the analysis. And that's what the next one's about. So let's take a look. Are you sure there's no questions? So I encourage you to build and redo, do these as soon as possible after getting home, so you get a chance. Do them tonight. And make sure that you get the numbers. You're getting the numbers, that everything's going okay. Think about the issues around it. So the next one says the option to abandon with varying prices. It's actually not too big a difference, but a couple of interesting what-ifs in putting together my business case.
Yeah, there was an additional question on the previous one.
What was that? You're right. Question 4. The head of the division's confident that the IP deal can be struck at 65 million. But to assist with negotiations, I'd like to know the minimum price at which the deal can proceed. What's the critical price level at which the IP can be sold? So 65 million was okay because at 65 million the option had value. Have a look up there at what level for exercising the option would the option now lose, in other words have no value. suppose it wasn't 60, that's actually going to, it's jumping out at you. Suppose I could sell it for 60, would it still have value? Suppose I could abandon the technology and get a $60 million check. Or sell the business, really is what I'm saying. Would it still have value? The answer is yes, 60 is bigger than 34 and 60 is bigger than 17.38, so 60 is fine. It'll have a value, but it won't be as much as 6.1. It's that pricing relationships we talked about, I think, in the very first class, changing the exercise price. What about 50? 40? 20? 17.39? Okay, that's all. So at 17.39, I guess the option still has value, but it'd be very small. $10,000 discounted back to here. You see the point at which the option loses value or has no value is if they say you can sell to us any time in the next 5 years, we'll give you $10 million. Now I'd probably like to take the $10 million, but basically given the volatility, we're not expecting to get to $10 million any time over the next 5 years. So that option would be worthless. Is that clear? 1738 here is the lowest number at which I put 1739 really, but I put something over the top. That's all that was about. It's really just using the information that exists in the tree, you know, to add richness to the case. Everybody pick that up okay? 1738, 1739. Otherwise I wouldn't exercise my option. Just another thing for later on. When you're building these things, perhaps as you're thinking about an application for the assignment, one of the things that you might say is, here's the day today, and look at the volatility, this thing assumes it'll go up to here and down to here, and you say, that's rubbish. I could never get the values up that high. If I was that big, the ACCC in this country, the regulator would say you are too big, too much market power, we block any acquisitions or whatever is necessary for me to have that much size. So it's nice to say volatility gives me some values, but there's no common sense in some. Or similarly, we can never drop this low, for goodness sake. Nigel Garrow's a lecturer here, could never drop that low, just with that brand. So, on that basis, I don't know if you've heard, but he's taken a dean's job at Flinders University and professor, meteoric rise, all because of the PhD supervision by me. So it's very good news for him, so not so good for us, but he's going to be a dean. So I don't know, where's that? Is it this country? Where's Flinders University? Flinders Business. So that was announced yesterday. But you say we'd never get that low. I mean, we're just not that bad. Look at our brand, look at our name. How can I get that low? So you might say, I build my tree, but have confidence, or don't have fear. Say, I'm going to now just cut that off at that point. I'm just going to override and say they're the new values. And similarly, this could never get down that low. I'm going to cut off there. I mean, we have 3 customers that we got down that low, you know, and we're a bigger company than that. So people get the idea. You can, in building this original tree up here, say that's nonsense. You can never get to 575 million. We have to take over the world. So don't be frightened to say that stays at 405 or something like that. That's up to the group. You're the architect, as long as you can justify the assumptions. If I put in more volatility, that'll go up even higher and lower. Don't be a slave to the normal distribution and those assumptions behind that. Is that up on Facebook already, the social media, that news I just gave you? Okay. So, let's go to the next one where the actual prices vary through time. What happens to vary through time? I don't think it's a AACSD credit, it's still... I don't think it's rated the top 100 or the top 1,000 actually, but anyway. Who cares if he's a dean, it's alright. Option to abandon with various prices. So one issue with the previous exercise was assume the project could be abandoned any time over the 5 years and the IP transferred to 6 months. Don't even look into Google, Brian, it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. It's a tiny thing in South Australia or South Africa or something. In reality, the price at which the IP could be transferred is likely to decline through time. So I just want us to start to build more and more flexibility, more and more reality, I should say, into our valuations. The following exercise show how we could do that. Suppose Tanqueray Solutions plans to enter the radio frequency ID market by developing software that would support the entire supply chain. This requires a substantial investment leading to a present value of 500 million with a high volatility of 50%. If market conditions turn sour over the next 5 years, the company can abandon the project and recoup some of its initial investment by salvaging the hardware. You can always sell the wire, I suppose. Right, so you spot that it's an abandonment as well, so there's no investment being made at a future date. We already own it. It's worth $500 million. But if things turn sour, we can pull out. So just like the last one. Now the next paragraph's the key. The company expects the salvage value of the assets to decrease by 30% annually, starting at 300 million at the end of year 1. The risk-free rate's 5. What's the abandonment value option 2? Now, if I put that to you earlier, before you'd even started the course, and said we've got abandonment options, future dates, flexibility and changing prices, you can see NPV can't handle it, and yet we're still doing NPVs here. It's just the tree enables us to do certain manipulations at certain joints. So let's do that one. Okay. So the first step, as usual, the green's the key inputs, and the yellow is the outputs. There's only 2 formulas in the course. They're all in there, the probabilities and the up and down factors. So the asset's worth 500, the rate's 5, and the volatility's 50%. That gives a big range of outcomes. Look at this. That says we can start today at 500 million, and if things really move up and keep going up, it could be as big as 6 billion. Now maybe that could be the case, but you might feel uncomfortable presenting that to a board.
In 5 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's the value from? Well, the volatility is 50%. That's how it is. And volatility is bad and volatility is good. It's 2 sides. So remember I said be careful with volatility with options. The bigger the volatility, the more valuable they're going to be. So that would be something to be very, very careful about. Perhaps be conservative on volatility rather. Human nature says put in a big number because I'm covering for bigger risk, and actually you're probably overstating the value of the option. Just remember that rule. Okay. Now, all I did here, so there's the up and downs and the P's and the 1 minus P's, so the relevant probabilities for each of those items. And I put in here a little table, just a quick calculation that says, well, I could sell at the end of the first year for 300. Now, would I? If you have a look here in the first year, my model says it either goes up to 8 or down to 3. It's an enormous spread, but that's because of the high volatility figure of 50%. So 210 at the end of the first year, second year. Why did it go to 210?
30%.
It's declining by 30% per year. So I'm taking 300 and actually multiplying by 70%, 1 minus the 30%. And then down it goes. So that's starting to look more realistic, isn't it? You'd expect that to happen if you're salvaging some hardware or even some IP. It'd be hard to imagine it stays the same value all the way through time. Okay, so let's do it. here we are. So I just put these down here so we can see them again. Now remember there are two little pictures here. One is the value going out to this direction, and this one is where the valuation comes back. So it's where the action is. So would I exercise my, always start the far right hand side and bring it forward, always picking the biggest number. So would I exercise my option to abandon at the end of year 5? Yes. Because what could I abandon for at the end of year 5? 72. So it's pretty mechanical now. 72, and it drops as low as 41, so I exercise my option there. Really, really mechanical now. So I'd exercise the option there. Everybody see that okay? And even just that difference between 72 and 41, 5 years away, is added. 1.5 million or billion to the proposal. So you understand that you could say that course says every present value is understated. And I put that to you before. And that's true. If there's flexibility in a project, it probably is understating it. The question is, would management exercise their options? How can I use it to rank projects where some have more flexibility than others? It's things like that. That's where the true value comes. Alright, have you jumped ahead? What about at the end of year 2, year 4? Well, the salvage value is estimated to be 103, certainly not up there, but yep, here, 84. So I'd exercise my option to abandon. 103. Year 3?
Yep.
Everybody following okay? 147. And you see how the value of the option's jumping up now, it's 5.8 million. It's not a very large percentage of the underlying project value, but it is adding some value. What about year, year 2? 203 versus 210, yes. And what about the end of year 1? No. So the answer is, the value of the option to abandon is 7.8 million. It's added 7.8 million to the value of the project, the existing project. And down the bottom here, I've done the option separately. So there are all the points that the option was in the money. You've got it on the page. Is people following okay? As I said, it's a bit mechanical at the moment, not that exciting, but it's really complex things to be doing in a business case. Just that we have the virtue of binomial tree and the things we can do with binomial option pricing. As I said, give management the plan A, B, C, and D, and under what conditions would they implement